Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to a very special pick a card reading. Today you are picking a color, and we are asking Spirit, should you stay or should you go? This question can apply to any aspect of your life. This could be in regards to a relationship, this can be in regards to a living situation, this can be in regards to a job, this can be in regards to whatever it is that you are considering leaving behind. Should you stay or should you go? Now, I think it's really important to note that we are getting advice so that you can hopefully get a little bit of an outside perspective on the situation, but it is so important that you remember that the choice is yours. It is your divine right to make choices that direct the course of your life, okay? This is just as if you were asking a friend for some input, and just because your friend says you gotta stay or you gotta go, that doesn't mean that that's what you're going to go with, right? So we want to make sure that we understand the context of this reading as spiritual advice. However, you are free to make the choices that feel right to you. And to be honest, there are no wrong choices because behind every choice is a lesson, okay? Should you stay or should you go? I have prepared 4 groups. We are picking with colors today. I'm trying to keep the reading really short and condensed because I'm not trying to dig too deep into the situation. I just want to get you a straightforward answer perspective from Spirit. So let me show you. Group 1, and I just realized that group 1 actually has a number 1 on it right here. These are the colors for group 1. Orange Tiger Lily, Celebration Orange, Sky Rocket Red. If this color is calling you, if any of these colors are calling you, or the combination of them. Color theory and just colors in general. Colors affect our mood so much. They can really illuminate a lot of our moods. If you've never been to astro.com, you might want to check it out because there's like a color analyzer. I'm not sure what it's called right now, but there's kind of like a color analyzer quiz where based on your mood, you just pick whatever colors like feel best to you or whichever colors you kind of don't like at the moment. And I'm telling you, it always gives you an accurate reading. If I remember, I will link it in the description below. Anyways, group 2, this is your color combination. Smoked turquoise, hazy Seacliff teal, totally teal. It's very overcast outside today, so the lighting is very bright white, but I hope you can get a good feel for the color. That is group 2. Group 3, we have icy green grape, pale pistachio, and elfin sage. These are gorgeous. These are really hard to show because the white light is so bright. There we go. That is group 3. And then group 4, we have fresh hyacinth, Roseland's periwinkle blue, and blue phlox. That is group 4. And again, we are asking, should you stay or should you go? I'm going to try and get you as straightforward of input as we can so that you can make a decision with confidence. And that's the thing, you never want to make a decision based solely on someone else's opinions or input or advice. Only when you take in information and you integrate it, you digest it, and you come to the decision that feels right for you, that is what makes you feel empowered, right? That is the only way that you can feel satisfied with coming to a decision. So I just kind of want to help you along the way. I'm not telling you what to do here. Spirit is not telling you what to do here. We're just trying to offer you a bigger picture. That's all. And then you take that into consideration however you see fit. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment now to zone in or zone out, whichever you need, in order to find the group that feels best to you. Timestamps are in the description below. I will meet you at your reading, and yeah, let me just hush. Hi Group 1, this is your reading if you chose the Orange Tiger Lily, the Celebration Orange, the Skyrocket Red. We're going to set this down right over here and we're going to get right into it. So here's what we're going to do. And if you have been around for Group 1s before, typically Group 1 is where I figure out what I'm going to do, but surprise, I figured it out beforehand today. I'm telling you, this reading came to me last night, and I have a very clear structure that we're going over, okay? So we are starting off with pulling two sections. We're going to get 3 cards on what will it look like if you stay. And then we're going to get 3 cards on what will it look like if you go, if you release whatever it is that you are considering releasing, right? So for Group 1, what would it look like if they stay? What would it look like if Group 1 decides to stay? Give me 3 cards, please. What would it look like if Group 1 decides to stay? We have the Death card, and I'm actually going to pull pretty much all of the cards. Ooh, we have the Tower card, and then get into it once we have the full picture, okay? So give me just a moment to pull all of these and get situated. Now, can we get 3 cards if Group 1 decides to go? We have the Page of Wands. Oh my goodness, I'm going to run out of space, aren't I? I forgot that these cards are kind of large. We have the Temperance card. You know what? I'm just going to do this. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Magician, reminding you of your divine right to make your own choices. Beautiful. Now we're going to get 1 card to see if there's anything that we need to specifically consider during this decision process. Anything lastly that we need to consider during this process? That was quick. We have the 10 of Pentacles, and then we are going to get 1 archetype card on what you should embrace during this decision process. What you should embrace during this decision process. Okay, don't be scared off by this. It's an archetype, so we will make it make sense. But the card that came out is labeled Prostitute. But it is an archetype. This does not define you in any way, okay? Not that there's anything wrong with that anyways. All right, so let's get into it. Should you stay or should you go? I feel like you, in some regard, have already overstayed your welcome. And that's not to say that you have overstayed your welcome with a particular person, but within the plan that the universe had or has for you. I think you are dragging your feet on something. And it feels like if you were to stay, if you were to double down, there would be a situation in which the universe will use external forces to create an ending that you have been avoiding. Now, it almost feels to me as if no matter which direction you choose in this, you are going to end up at the same destination. It's just that if you go, you will feel more empowered. If you stay, you will be forced to claim that empowerment. So we have the Death card, the Tower card, which is the external forces that will be unavoidable. But then the Ace of Cups indicates that those unavoidable forces that are enforcing a necessary ending of something are ultimately for the betterment of your self-worth in some regard, are ultimately for the betterment of you being able to receive what you are truly worthy of. Now we have the Ten of Pentacles right here, and that is something that we need to take into consideration during this process of coming to a decision. And what you need to take into consideration is your worth. Your worth. You are holding on to something that is not in alignment with you. And I didn't expect to feel that this strongly. I thought maybe, we'll see a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but I'm feeling that strongly. You are holding on to something that is not in alignment with you. Now, when we look at the timeline of what were to happen, what would it look like if you were to leave? If you leave something behind, or if you let go of something, it makes you feel a lot more empowered, and it would make you feel a lot more like you are actually flowing with the current. Here you're swimming against the current, and here you're swimming with the current, which gives you kind of like the extra push. However, I think it's really interesting how there aren't necessarily any positive or negative cards. I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's coming down pretty hard right now outside. But there aren't necessarily any negative or positive cards. But the way that this is coming out is that these are some pretty heavy cards, and then there is a very delightful card. Here we have two very delightful cards, and then we have a little bit of a conflict card. So either way, it's not easy, because even if you make the choice to release whatever this is, to let go, to move on, you'll feel that push, and you'll feel like, okay, I'm moving in alignment, but you will hit a little bit of a speed bump where you're like, this is kind of difficult though. And I think the difficulty will come also through external sources. However, I think that the external sources are going to be a lot more devastating if you stay, because you will be pushed out. It's almost like being pushed out of the nest. Now, this card here, the light attributes, it says accentuates the challenge of surviving without negotiating the power of your spirit. And the shadow attribute says places material considerations and security above self-empowerment. Now, that's exactly what I think this choice is about. Places material considerations and security. I'm not so concerned about the material considerations, because I think I want to focus more on the security, because material considerations boils down to security. So in this scenario where you stay, you are staying because of a fear around losing some kind of foundation, losing some kind of security. That fear will then immediately be justified by the choice of staying, though. So there is this fear of like, no, I need to stay in this job because this is what pays the bills, or I need to stay in this relationship because I feel like I am not secure when I'm single. The security that you seek is something that you are actually able to establish if you go. And that doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. That's why we have this Five of Wands here. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There's still going to be somewhat of an uphill battle. It's still going to be a lesson of growth. It's still going to be necessary change, and that's not easy. However, if it will make you feel more aligned, it feels like less resistance. This is a lot of resistance. This is so much resistance up here. However, again, I strongly feel that there's technically no wrong choice to make, because in the end, I think you end up where you need to be. I almost feel like even the fact that it had to go this way is like, if you take this route, you are just delaying this process. And so this card, titled Prostitute, is really just about, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give in hopes of security? What are you willing to pay in hopes of attaining some kind of security? So again, this is connecting to self-worth. And I just want to make it clear, because I have absolutely no issues with sex work. It's a difficult it's a difficult title to kind of throw out there, right? The word prostitute, but I personally don't have any issues with sex work as long as that's someone's personal choice and they're not forced into it, or think they don't have any other options. And that's just my ego right now wanting to explain, because I don't want anyone to feel offended by this. But really what I'm trying to point out is that this Ten of Pentacles, the considerations, right? The consideration that you have to make while you're making this decision is your worth. In which route, if you stay or if you go, in which route is your self-worth being honored the most? Because that's the direction you need to grow in. So to be quite frank, to me, it seems like letting go of this will be the more aligned choice. Letting go of this will be the more aligned choice. You'll feel more in flow and kind of more empowered and more excited if you go. However, it is different, it is new. And that will cause some conflict, whether that is with other people or whether that is, and you might actually be conflict avoidant. You know, what I'm also seeing is that you might have a fear of having to fend for yourself. You might have this desire to be taken care of, but okay, something's coming through. I feel like the idea of I should stay has a lot to do with, I feel safer when somebody else is providing for me in some form. Especially if it comes to career, this is the idea of staying with a certain employer because you are too afraid to try starting your own business or try going your own route, because it requires to be in competition. And even if you're not trying to start your own business, but if you are considering going into the job market, you are afraid of the competition. You are afraid of the conflict of comparing yourself to others. That's why, and the consideration that you need to make while making this decision is your worth, your inherent worth, your capabilities, your abilities. You are incredibly capable, and I think you're underselling yourself by attaching yourself out of fear Yeah, honestly. And I'm not saying quit your job today and you'll find a new job tomorrow. There's definitely going to be some kind of form of competition that takes place. And the same goes for if this is within a relationship. If you're not being honored in the relationship that you are at, you will be forced out of that in some way, in a very painful way, where then you will be forced to figure out, how can I love myself? And then that kind of takes you back into finding balance within relationships, and then probably entering the dating scene again, right? So it's kind of like, do you want to skip all of that painful? And you're not skipping, you're not ever avoiding, but it's like, are you willing to integrate the lesson, or are you not quite yet ready yet and you need to learn it a different way? But it all comes back to this 10 of Pentacles, which is recognizing your self-worth, your inherent self-worth, but also where is it you're trying to grow towards? And is that attainable through staying? Is that attainable through going? I feel like it's attainable in a much more efficient way if you go. Now we're going to get any last considerations or advice for group 1. Any last considerations or advice? We have Be Here Now. That is a 2. You know what? These 2 cards want to come out, so I'll take both of them. What is it? What are we looking at? We have Be Here Now and Unapologetic. Be here now and unapologetic. Especially if you're having a hard time letting go of something and you're thinking of, I need to stay because of all the time that I've put in. It's not about the past. It's not about what's been put in. It's about, how is it making you feel right now? How is it making you feel right now? And unapologetic is talking to me about, you may feel like you have some kind of responsibilities. Now, again, I'm not saying you got to quit your job today and be out of the place by tomorrow. I'm also not saying that you need to break up your relationship immediately, but to take things into consideration and do them in a well-structured way that allows you, especially with this Page of Wands, that allows you to move forward in an excited way, right? You got to wrap up whatever you have to wrap up in your old cycle so that you can go into your new cycle feeling excited and empowered, and not, you don't want to leave behind a mess. But unapologetic is definitely saying that there shouldn't be something that holds you back out of guilt or shame. You should unapologetically make the decisions that feel right for your life. You don't owe anyone any more time than you've already given them. Okay, so I will tell you, overall, I feel like if you stay, you will be shown why you should go. And that's okay. If that's what you choose, that is okay too. Again, just for you to take into consideration as you make this decision. And if you go, I think you'll be able to move with a little bit more momentum. Okay? And again, I want to just remind you one last time of your inherent worth. I think you deserve a lot more than wherever you're at right now. And you are going to learn that one way or another. One way or another, that message is going to land and you will integrate it. All right? Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope that this was helpful, interesting. Let me know how you feel about it in the comments. I would really love that, appreciate that, because I love hearing back. And I would also love it if you book a personal reading with me. You can do that on my website. And yeah, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi, Group 2. This is your reading. If you chose the smoked turquoise, the hazy sea cliff teal, totally teal. We're going to set this down right here. We're going to get right into your reading. Now, let's focus. There we go. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to pull 3 tarot cards to see what would it look like if you stay. We are asking, should you stay or should you go, right? So we're going to try and get a full picture. So we're asking for 3 cards for what would it look like if you stay. 3 cards for what would it look like if you go. So let's get into that. For group 2, what would it look like if group 2 decides to stay? Ooh, we have the Strength card. Ooh, we have the Queen of Wands. And one more, just one more, please. We have the High Priestess. All right, let's just stop right there. We got our answer, I think. Let's see what comes out for the other option. What would happen if you go? What would happen if group 2 decides to go? We have the Ten of Wands. Wow, this is so straightforward. I love it. What would happen if group 2 decides to go? We have the Hanged Man. Holy cow. And just one more. If group 2 decides Judgment. This is, look at, we have the King of Cups at the bottom of the deck. I love that because it is reminding you of your divine right to choose for yourself. Same thing happened in group 1. It was the Magician at the bottom of the deck. Your divine right to choose for yourself. Just a reminder, okay? All right, I'm gonna keep pulling cards and I'm going to get into this in a second. We're gonna pull one card from this deck to see what you need to be taking into consideration during this decision. What is something that group 2 needs to take into consideration while making this decision? Absolutely. We have the Page of Wands, but in this deck, I read this deck a little bit differently, so we will get there. And then we're going to get one archetype card. This is going to be an aspect that Spirit would like for you to embrace during this decision, during making your decision. An aspect that Spirit would like for you to embrace during this decision-making process. That's what I was trying to go. One aspect group 2 should embrace during this decision. That jumped. All right. Okay, this is coming through so strong. Group 2, I love you. Group 2, do not doubt your intuition. Not one bit. We have the Hermit card come out. Okay. Listen, for the option of it's like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie Sliding Doors. It's been a long time, and honestly, it's not that great of a movie. But the concept is, if you could see your life play out in both versions, that's kind of what we're looking at here, Sliding Doors. So if you were to stay, if you were to go. If you were to stay, I am not guaranteeing that it is easy, but I am guaranteeing that it is a character building, character defining decision for you to stay. Not everything worth having comes easily. First card out is the Strength card. You have what it takes to make this work. You have what it takes. Now, sometimes certain situations make us doubt, is this worth it? Should I stay here? There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of tension. Does this make sense? Sometimes that tension is a pure sign of growth. And that's what I'm seeing with this Queen of Wands. Whatever the situation is, again, it applies however you need it in your life, whether this is you deciding to stay in a relationship or you deciding to stay in a career, you deciding to stay with creating your own business, you deciding to stay, anything. Your intuition is guiding you to be patient and to stick it out. We have the High Priestess. We have this card for me is always huge on intuition. Even though this is the Page of Wands, in this deck, I read this deck based on the imagery. And in this deck, it is represented by the constellation Pyxis. And there is this mermaid with one eye, and it says journey, navigation, route. This is always a heavily Neptunian energy for me. And the way that I relate that to the Page of Wands is that sometimes, because pages are kind of like the most immature energy, and a Page of Wands acts on their desires. They're like, I don't know why, this is a desire that I have. And because they do that, they are able to kind of embark on journeys in almost a naive way that really kind of sets something into motion that is a lot larger than what they've been able to envision even. So this always has a very Neptunian energy to me, because it's like ignoring the boundaries of what is possible. So this is a card of intuition, this is a card of intuition, this is a card of intuition, this is a card of intuition. You need to trust your intuition. And I'm not saying that you're not doing that or that you're struggling with that, but I think you are perhaps a little bit tired of trusting, right? And I understand it, I know. Now let's take a look at if you were to go, if you were to release or end whatever it is that is causing you to doubt at this time. You would be actually... It's interesting because we have the Strength card here and the Ten of Wands come out first. These cards are actually quite similar. It's just that the attitude of the Strength card is, look at how much I can carry. Look at how much I can lift. And the Ten of Wands is that exhaustion of, I can't lift this any longer. It has a lot to do with perspective. Instead of having this pride of, wow, look at what I've been able to accomplish, look at what I've been able to endure, it's look at how much I've endured already. And if you release this, I can understand why you feel the desire to let go, because I can tell that it is challenging. But it is challenging, and I'm hearing, and I know this is so annoying, but diamonds are made under pressure. This is you in your diamond shape, right? If you think of a diamond, it's all about the clarity, just like the High Priestess. It is all about the clarity of the rock. And you have the ability, if you stick with it, if you trust in your abilities, you have the ability to become a impeccable diamond. Now that doesn't mean that if you decide to let this go, that you will never be that diamond. Absolutely not. But it will put you in a place of judgment, because this staying and committing yourself to whatever this is what your intuition is guiding you to do. If you act out against your intuition, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to tell you what your intuition is telling you. That's just how the cards are showing it to me. But as you're listening to this, you have to know what your intuition is telling you, because it can very likely be, or not likely, but it can very much be that this doesn't resonate for you, okay? So I'm not trying to tell you what to feel. But the way the cards are coming out is that staying and committing to whatever this is in intuitive alignment with you. And when we don't act in alignment with our intuition, when we rebel against our intuition because our ego says, no, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore, I don't want to be the one that has to break these curses, these family curses, these generational patterns, I'm not the one that... I don't want to be your strongest soldier, I don't want to be the one that does the heavy lifting. Totally fair. Totally fair. However, if you choose that route, the way the cards are coming out is that you will have a really hard time justifying that in the long run with your mind. And I'm telling you, you will come back to this. You will come, and that doesn't necessarily mean, let's say this is a relationship and you're finding it really difficult to come together in a way that it feels supportive, right? If you say, I don't have the energy to make this work anymore, that's totally fair. I do see that you would come back to this, and that doesn't necessarily mean you would come back to specifically that relationship, but you would come back to that pattern. So you would find a different relationship that will eventually play out in similar ways. And so you will, because of this Judgment card, because you are actually deeply desiring to conquer this. This is an energy of like, I want to conquer this in my lifetime. I want to conquer this. And again, this can apply in so many different ways. This can be about love. This can be about career. But there's something that you are trying to conquer, and you are being guided by your intuition to conquer this, to stick with it. And if you decide, I need a detour, I can't do this right now, you will be brought back eventually, because your intuition is incredibly strong and you will not be able to ignore that. So this card is asking you to embrace the energy of Hermit while you make this decision. This means that it is really important for you to tune in with your intuitive knowledge, to tune in with your gut. If you feel like you haven't done a lot of work around intuition, then try to just be in conversation with yourself. Try to be in conversation with your needs. That can look like journaling. That can look like audio journaling, right? Doing voice notes, talking it out with yourself. But I think it is important that you sit with yourself for this decision. So the Hermit says, for the light attributes, seek solitude to focus intently on inner life, serves personal creativity. That also means that, you know what, we live in a society, most of us do at least, we live in a society where intuition is not honored correctly. We are told to just kind of join the rat race. We are told to not think and just do, right? And so it can be an act of rebellion to really sit and tune into your inner life. And I do see that. I know that swimming against the grain is really exhausting. And if you were to try and go back with swimming with the grain, I just feel you eventually getting just as tired of that as well. The expansive energy that it takes to stick with this is worth it, because you will feel like I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So again, it is your decision, and we are just kind of giving you an overview of, this is the big picture. However, I will say that this is so straightforward to me. I think that Spirit's advice to you is to stick with it. Stay. It requires endurance. It requires pride. And pride in like the best way. Pride of like, look at what I'm capable of, not look at what I've had to endure. With the Hanged Man here, I feel like this would just be a detour. If you were to let go of whatever this is, it would just be a detour. All right. Let's see if we can get any last considerations or advice for group 2 in making this decision. So should you stay or should you go? I think you should stay. If, of course, there's lots of different scenarios here that we are considering. If it is safe and if it is logical, logical to a certain degree, but if it is safe and if it is manageable, like if it's doable, if it's something that isn't restricted by outside parameters. For example, like if you're asking, should I move to a new apartment when your current apartment is kicking you out, like me saying you should stay doesn't really change the situation, right? So we have to kind of use our discernment in how to apply this, because in that kind of scenario, it would be more so like you should stay in terms of staying on course with what drew you to that area, or what drew you to live with a certain person, or what drew you to live on your own. Because there's something where it's kind of like you're considering giving up because you're exhausted, and I can see that. So we need to establish some ways for you to relieve some of that exhaustion, but you also need to transmute some of that exhaustion into pride, because you have been doing a great job. So this is kind of defeatist energy, and this is prideful energy, but the amount of energy that is expanded is the same. It's just how are you transmuting it? Okay, any last considerations or advice? We have ritual. That's exactly what I was just trying to say, is that we need to establish, because you're feeling exhausted, inclusions at the bottom of the deck. Because it seems like you're feeling pretty exhausted by this whole process, you need to establish some kind of rituals that allow you to recoup your energy, to recharge your batteries, and to be able to transmute this expense of energy into pride, right? And especially, I think, when it comes to, because this Queen of Wands is very self-sufficient, I think this has a lot to do with possibly having your own vision in some regard, especially with all that intuitive energy. But it's important that when your intuition is guiding you somewhere, it's important that we don't just place all of our faith into our intuition. We have to live in the balance of things, meaning that we have to employ our intuition, but we have to act upon it as well, so that we can create scenarios and situations in our life that are in alignment and create movement in order for us to keep our energy flowing and not stagnant. This would create stagnancy, and if you exhaust yourself and stay too much in your intuitive space and too much in just the theoretical world, the metaphysical, then you're becoming just as stagnant, right? So we need to create rituals that allow us to create some kind of balance, especially because you have so much intuitive energy. I think it's really important that you ground yourself a lot, especially because you have you're expanding a lot of energy. You're expanding a lot, but you're also expending a lot of energy, meaning you're giving a lot in some regard. So you got to make sure that there's some kind of ritual where you regularly check in with yourself and establish like what's going in. It's kind of like budgeting, but for your energy. Yeah, that's how it's coming through. It's like budgeting, and you want to do that on your own, right? The way that when we budget our finances, we kind of typically do it on our own, unless we have an accountant or something. But finances are something very private. So I think budgeting your energy sources and resources and ways to replenish your energy is going to be something that's really helpful in you making this decision, so that you don't make a decision out of exhaustion. Oof, I feel really good about this reading, because that shit just came flowing out. Yeah, you don't want to make a decision just out of exhaustion. You want to make a decision from a grounded and an intuitive place. Okay? I'm gonna leave it there, because honestly I can't do any better than that. That was amazing. I think this reading was extremely straightforward. I say stay with it, but again, the power is in your hands. It is your life. You make the decisions. This is just something to consider during that process, okay? I hope it helped. I hope it gave you a little bit of guidance. Let me know how it made you feel. I would love to hear that in the comments. And also, if you would like to book a personal reading, you can do that in the description. My website is listed there. You can only book through my website. I would love if you did that, because I am such a fan of personal readings, honestly. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I don't know where I was going with that sentence, but I am wishing you all the best in this decision, okay? I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi, Group 3. This is your reading if you chose the iced green grape, pale pistachio, and elfin sage. We are going to set this right down here and get right into your reading. Okay, so we are about to pull 3 cards for We are asking, should you stay or should you go? So we are pulling 3 cards for if you stay, 3 cards for if you go, and then we have a couple more cards to come out. I'm going to pull all the cards at once, and then we're going to dive in. So for group 3, what would it look like if group 3 decides to stay in whichever situation they are considering? What would it look like if group 3 decides to stay? Give me 3 cards only, please. We have the 8 of Wands. We have the Knight of Cups. Oh, I don't feel confident about that. That was the Emperor though, and the Sun. Taking that into consideration, but that was a couple cards that turned over, so let's try that again. For group 3, what would it look like if they decide to stay? One more card. Did you see that? The Emperor. Ooh. Okay, I cannot break them up. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm not breaking them up. This is... wow. And I don't say that lightly. All right, now let's take a look if you go. What would it look like if group 3 decides to go, if they decide to end something, if they decide to leave something behind? We have the Justice card. We have the 3 of Wands. We have the Chariot. At the bottom of the deck is the Knight of Swords. I absolutely love that in all readings that I've done so far, this is number 3, the bottom of the deck is constantly a reminder. The first reading, it was the Magician. The second reading, it was the King of Cups. Now it is the Knight of Swords. Absolutely, in all 3 cases, it is a very strong reminder of the fact that you have the choice to make. It is your divine right to make your choices in your life. Okay, we're going to get 1 card from this deck to see anything that we need to take into consideration while making this decision. No? No. What do we need to take into consideration? There we go. We have the 10 of Wands. And then we are going to get 1 aspect, 1 card from my archetype deck. And we are going to get an aspect that Spirit would like for you to embrace while making this decision. An aspect that Spirit would like for group 3 to embrace while making this decision. Oops. All right, I will take that. We have Engineer. Okay, I love that. So for Engineer, something to embrace while making this decision, it says the light attribute is the ability to give creative energy a practical expression, talent for designing resolutions to common dilemmas. And I think that goes along beautifully with this 8 of Wands, because this 8 of Wands indicates if you were to stay, I think there is a lot of manifestations that are already on their way. You might just be in a moment of contemplation because you haven't seen the signs of them coming in yet. But I think that's because you're kind of focused on a different direction. Take a look at this Knight of Cups. You're very future oriented, and you're with this Engineer card, I think you're very calculated in a good way. I think that there is a lot that is on its way to you already. If you were to go, I feel like you would be outrunning some kind of manifestation to be quite honest. I think you would be outrunning something. Along with this Justice card, the Three of Wands, the Chariot, it would be kind of like a rushed judgment on something, and you would be outrunning, especially because staying involves the Empress and the Emperor. Now, I'm gonna make this apply in a few different ways in a moment, but I just want to highlight that the Empress and the Emperor are both energies that reside within you, that are energies that are closely tied to who you are as a human being. It is your divine feminine energy and it is your divine masculine energy. Those are both within you. You do not have to seek a divine feminine or divine masculine outside of yourself. These are just different expressions of your energy, whereas the Emperor is an expression of energy that is very proactive. The Empress is an energy that is very receptive. And so there is something about manifestations coming in because you are very receptive and you have been very proactive, or you have been very receptive and you're becoming very proactive. It's going to be different for different people. However, something to take into consideration while you're making this decision, we have the Ten of Wands, and in this deck I read based on the imagery of the cards. And in this, for this card, the Ten of Wands is represented by this constellation Telescopium and Reticulum. It says observation, big picture, and discovery. Now I want you to pay attention to the fact that, first of all, look at the blues here, but I want you to pay attention to the fact that she is sending out these birds. And listen, I don't have enough knowledge on the lingo or the culture of bird keeping, but she knows that these birds will come back. And whether they are carrier birds or not, this card always kind of reminds me of the way that in lots of fairy tales, birds and flying animals in general are messengers, and how they carry information just the same as the Eight of Wands does. So this is a double confirmation that you need to take into consideration that there are things that you have, seeds that you have planted in the past that have not come to fruition yet, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to, right? And so this Ten of Wands also indicates all of the effort that you have already put into something. And that is something that you need to keep in mind while you make this decision. Now, with the Engineer, something to keep in mind, again, ability to give creative energy a practical expression. I love this because to me, the Eight of Wands always talks about manifestations coming in because manifestations don't just land in your lap because you said pretty please. That's not how it works. Manifestations come in because you have done the work to be able and open to receive them. So you have actively done what you need to do in order to receive those manifestations. Now, you have some kind of emotional attachment to that happening, and you are very future oriented in the sense that you are very calculated with this Engineer card as well. You're very focused on, what don't I have yet? What do I still need in order to achieve this Empress and Emperor status? Like, you're very emotionally invested in, like, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet. And so this right here, this row down here, to me talks about, if you let that get to your head, the idea of like, I'm not there yet, I'm not there yet, you would be casting judgment on yourself too quickly. You would go outside of yourself you would expand in a different direction, because here the Knight of Cups is seeking to empower himself through their divine feminine and divine masculine energy. Down here, you're seeking for answers outside of yourself. And that is really just taking a detour. That is really just taking the long road. You would feel like, I'm chasing my manifestations. but your manifestations are already on the way to you. So when you get in the car and you're like, I'm chasing these manifestations, all you're doing is you're outrunning them, right? Because then your manifestations are going to have to, the universe has to kind of keep up to make sure, like, wait, stand still. Wait, I'm trying to give you this. But you know, the universe, unfortunately, does not revolve around us. So there's lots of things that have to happen and fall into place so that something can land, just the way the Eight of Wands. That's the beauty of the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands is one of my favorite cards because it speaks to me about exactitude, right? The wands are all aligned with one another. And it's necessary for that to happen so that they can all ground, so that they can all hit the ground in an angle where they land and not just become a mess like the Five of Wands. Okay, so in regards to the question, should you stay or should you go? I think you should stay. And that is perhaps not the easier way, but it is the more empowering way. So let me just tell you that when it comes to applying this to a relationship, for example, if you are considering, like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this relationship, or honestly, maybe, well, let me stick with that. When it comes to this applying to a relationship, this is asking you to consider all of the efforts that have been put into getting to know one another and getting to understand one another. I think if you were to go, of course, please apply this only as it fits, because I'm not telling you to stay in anything toxic, right? But you might be cutting someone's growth short by saying, like, this person isn't what I want. Okay, but can this person grow into what you want? Can you grow with this person into what it is that you're envisioning, right? So this is just a reminder, like, we all have divine feminine and masculine energy within us, but that doesn't mean that we always act within alignment to that divine energy. And so there is something here about, if you stay, it's going to require some compassion. It's going to require some perspective, and it's going to require some cooperation. If you go and if you cut this short and you're like, I'm going to go somewhere else because this isn't working out, ultimately, I think you're outrunning the growth that you're looking for. Because that growth doesn't happen in absence of friction. And I don't necessarily see a lot of friction here, but I do see a lot of growth. I mean, how do I say this? I see a lot of growth that is happening through extraction in some form. Now, if you are asking about should I stay or should I go in terms of a career, I'm just afraid of you saying, you know what, I'm done here, I'm not doing this anymore, and you missing out on things that are clearly headed your way. They're clearly coming, they're on the way. I just want to point out that this Engineer card, which this card indicates what you should embrace, right? The Shadow attribute, which means let's be careful about that. It says reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. And I think that's kind of, if you were to go, if you were to cut this off, you're actually cutting off something that you are emotionally attached to. It would be kind of enforcing logic over emotion. And then I see you kind of running away from your emotions if you were to cut this off. This could be something that scares you because it clearly indicates that there's some growth that is necessary in order to fully embrace this. But this could be something that scares you because of how powerful it is and how empowering it is. But I don't know. I'm having a couple things come through right now. I heard you gotta put a coin to play. I don't know what that is. That's not a saying or anything, but I'm seeing like a pinball machine or something, and it's like you gotta pay a fee to play. But then I also heard it takes two to tango. So there is some kind of reliance. If you choose to stay, I think perhaps some of you are asking, should I stay or should I go? Because you are at a stage within a relationship, whether that is a friendship or a romantic relationship or a work commitment. I think you're at a stage where it's like, I am becoming vulnerable or I am becoming attached. Do I need to pull out my investment before I lose? And that is coming from a place of fear. And if you cut this short, if you cut this experience short, because that's what I feel like you would be doing, you would be cutting an experience short, then you would be actually foregoing some kind of real, authentic bond. So overall, the way it's looking to me right now, I think you should stay. But again, this is just kind of a perspective. It is your choice, and you have to see how this aligns with your intuition, because I can't tell you what resonates, right? But the way, if everything I said kind of resonates, and if the issue around this is fear of vulnerability, then we need to think about how can we approach this in a way where we feel empowered in our vulnerability. How can we feel that we are not just giving ourselves away to someone or something? Because I see a lot of fear here. I see a lot of fear of like not getting a payout. And if you avoid staying in something because you're fearful of not getting a payout, and then you pull out, it's kind of like you're cutting your payout short yourself. And this also applies if this is some kind of career or some kind of job that you've been dedicating yourself to and you're not seeing, or even I'm definitely seeing for some of you this could have to do with like trying to establish like some kind of social media presence, some kind of community, and it feels like you've been trying to establish that and it feels like it's not going anywhere. Again, I just see a lot of things they're on their way. They're on their way, and you being more open and vulnerable and more in touch with your emotions is what's going to allow you to really step into this divine energy. And again, if this has to do with some kind of relationship, I think that having patience and constructive, especially with engineer, ability to give creative energy a practical expression, having constructive communication, because the Eight of Wands is also about communication, having constructive communication around vulnerability allows both of you, no matter your genders, allows both of you to show up in an empowered and dedicated way. And here you would just be placing judgment without having given. This is kind of like, this row feels like you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and the other person doesn't even get to plead their case, and you're just like, no, I've decided, and so I'm off to, this is very much thank you next. This whole row is thank you next. You have decided. No, thank you next. But what are you missing out on if you choose that route of thank you next, okay? Just consider that. What are you missing out on? What are you forgoing? Okay, I'm gonna pull last oracle cards to see any last considerations or advice that we should take into account for this decision for group 3. Any last advice? We have treasure. Camouflage is at the bottom of the deck. Something is hidden in plain sight for you. I think a lot of the manifestations that you are waiting for are already like right in front of you, and I just don't want you. I'm getting with treasure, I'm getting this imagery of somebody digging, like you have a treasure map and you're like, the X marks the spot, it's right here, and you've been digging and digging and digging, and then you're like, whatever, I give up. And it's like right below that is that treasure. So I feel strongly that there's something, and again, you have to know how this applies and if it makes sense, but I feel strongly that there's something here that you should not give up on. However, if you feel that it is right to give up on this, you will find this frequency somewhere else. You can outrun your manifestations for a little while, but they will find you. Whatever's meant for you will not pass you by. It might take a little longer. I think it would literally be you outrunning your manifestations out of a fear of being vulnerable, to be quite honest. I also want to point out that with this Knight of Swords, that you should not make any hasty decisions when it comes to this. I think communication is going to be very important, no matter what the situation is about, whether it is a connection that you're in, whether it is a friendship, whether it is a job. I think voicing your concerns is a form of strength through vulnerability. So communication is going to be very important here, because if you cut off that communication and you just make the decision on your own with this Justice card, then you're just kind of running away from it, and that is kind of like, feels like a hasty decision to me. So make sure that you take your time with this. Again, with Engineer, this is something for you to embrace, which means to really think it through and take your time. Don't make any hasty decisions with this. The shadow attribute says reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. I said that earlier already in terms of this row really applies to that, but I just want to point that out again, that emotional consequences are going to be really important. That is something that you need to take into consideration so that you don't make hasty decisions, so that you don't kind of forego your own emotions in making this decision. So yeah, overall, I do feel like Spirit and the cards are leaning towards stay, because it feels like there's a lot coming in, but you have to know how this applies, right? Use your discernment. But otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I would love it if you left me a comment just letting me know how this made you feel. How do you think this may affect your decision-making process? I'd be super interested. And also, if you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so only through my website. It is linked in the description. Would love to do a personal reading for you. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi Group 4, this is your reading if you chose the Fresh Hyacinth, Roseland's Periwinkle Blue, and Blue Phlox. Beautiful, I don't know, let's just call it what it is. It's purple. It's violet. They're gorgeous. Okay, we're gonna set that right down here. I feel like by the time I get to the last group, I'm always like a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more laissez-faire. That was probably not the way to pronounce that, but whatever. I'm making my point exactly. Okay, so let's talk about it. Should you stay or should you go? We are going to get 3 cards, what it would look like if you stay, 3 cards, what it would look like if you go, and then there's a couple other cards I'm going to be pulling. I'm going to pull them out first, and then once I have all the cards out, we will get into it. So for Group 4, what would it look like if they decide to stay? For Group 4, and this can apply to whichever area of life you need it to. 3 cards, please, just 3 cards. If Group 4 decided to stay, what would that look like? My goodness. We have the Devil card, Immediately I'm feeling it could get a little messy, the way those cards just fell out. We have the Devil card. Context is going to matter, so let's see what else comes out. If Group 4 decides to stay, what would that look like? 2 more cards, please. What would that look like? We have the Knight of Wands. Ooh, I'm getting a story. And 1 more. Thank you. All right. For Group 4, if they decide to go, what would it look like if they decide to go, if they decide to leave this behind, if they decide to end this? We have the 4 of Swords. We have the Strength card. Ooh, babe, I'm getting a strong storyline here. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. At the bottom of the deck, we have the King of Cups, and I will tell you what I've told every other group. The bottom of the deck in every group so far, well, this is the last group, in every group has indicated a strong reminder that the choice is yours. You have the divine right of choice when it comes to your life. So that is just a reminder with that King of Cups. That has been very strong. All of the cards at the bottom of the deck have been very strong reminders of that. Now we're going to get 1 card that is going to indicate any kind of considerations you need to take into account. What does Group 4 need to take into consideration while making this decision? What is something they need to consider? And this card wants out immediately. We have Temperance. Beautiful. And then we're going to get 1 from my archetype deck, and this card is going to signify an aspect that you need to, that Spirit would like for you to embrace during this decision-making process. An aspect that Group 4 should embrace during this decision-making process. Group 4, I can tell that this decision is making you nervous. You're definitely feeling some pressure around this. I'm getting heart palpitations. Oh, my love. Okay. Can I just be frank? Go. Go, dog, go. Especially with this Chariot card. I don't know if you ever read that book, Go, Dog, Go, Dr. Seuss book, and there's doctors. There's dogs in this car. Babe, go, dog, go. This is very straightforward. I think that this is clearly telling us that it is not just time, but that it is very likely necessary for you to move on from this. You have to know how this applies. You have to know how it resonates. I am not telling you you have to go. I'm just telling you what the cards are telling me, what Spirit is telling me. So please check in with yourself and see how that makes you feel, because your emotional reaction to this is going to tell you a lot, okay? Let's start off here. We have 3 cards indicating what would it look like if you were to stay. The first card out is the Devil card, and this is very much the theme of the Devil card, but specifically in this deck, I want to point out that down here it says the enslaved woman, the enslaved man. Now I know that's a very sinister looking Devil card, but what this is telling me is that when it comes to this situation, whatever it is, whether this is a job that you're considering staying at, or whether this is a relationship that you're considering staying with, if this is a situationship especially that you're considering staying with, I see that this has a chokehold on you. I see that this has a hold on you that is not healthy and not balanced. When it comes to what you need to take into consideration, we have the Temperance card, because it is important for you to consider which option, meaning staying or going, which option would give you more opportunity for balance. Balance within, balance without, meaning balance within your emotions. Which option will make you feel safer in the long run, but also which option will make you feel more balanced in your life, not just internally. Because what I'm seeing here is some kind of dependency on something or someone. And the dependency feels suffocating. It feels suffocating. And if you stay, that suffocation will cause you or another person to act out with this Knight of Wands, where if you tell yourself like, no, I'm going to stay in this, or I'm going to stay with this, there is a desire for freedom within you that is going to push the limits of this, I'm hearing entrapment. That's going to push the limits, and you have to know how it applies, but I am worried that it will turn volatile. And that's not to scare anyone, but there is definitely, there is room for volatile energy here, meaning it could end in a way that's just very ugly, but it could also be to the point where it's like you kind of have to break free in a very volatile way, because we go from the Knight of Wands where it's almost like it will take a lot more tension to finally break away from it, and then you are able to be like, okay, now I really have to go. And I feel like I don't want you to get to that point, right? Where you say like, no, I can't. And then you experience something where it's like, okay, now I don't even have a choice anymore. I would prefer that it is your choice from the beginning. This feels like it's a very imbalanced situation. It feels like a toxic situation, and that's not just because of the devil. It just feels like something that you actually need space from to heal from. I want to take a look now at this bottom row, which is what would it look like if you decide to go? If you decide to go, if you decide to create distance between you and whatever this is that you're trying to break free from, I would advise you to really take distance and not just half-heartedly being like, oh, it's over, but then you still stay in contact with this person. That's not going to work. You need space, and you need emotional and physical space to heal from this. And the moment that you kind of get into that, and the moment this feels like a very addictive thing. I don't know if this is a person or a situation or quite literally a substance, but this feels very addictive. And that addictive quality makes you feel like it is the source of your power. And it is not. And once you go through withdrawal symptoms, and once you cleanse your system emotionally and physically from that addictive substance, you're actually able to regain and recognize your own strength, and therefore enact your own power a lot more. Babe, I want you to go. And this is me like talking to you like a friend. I want you to go. I'm not telling you what choices you need to make, but this card right here is what you should embrace during the process of making this decision. And we got Liberator. I think you need to liberate yourself from something or someone. And again, look at, she is holding this, now my brain is fried and I can't think of what that's called, torch. She's holding this torch. And here we have this devil card. There's a lot of fire here. And then there's these flames on this car. I think it's really important that you recognize that your power is being taken from you in whatever the situation is. Your power is being taken from you, and it's almost being sold back to you, as in like, you see, only I know what to do with your power. And that's not true. Taking this torch is reclaiming your power. Freeing yourself and others from outmoded beliefs, releasing negative thought patterns. I don't need to focus on the shadow attribute because it doesn't apply here. So this is really about what to embrace in making this decision. Take into consideration. Actually, I do want to read it because I want you to take into consideration where other people might be doing this, because it does feel very external, but also external, to a certain degree, external limitations are limitations that we have allowed to accumulate, right? We have to take accountability for that as well. It says, imposing your own tyranny over those you claim to liberate. That is exactly what this person or the situation is doing. It's like, see, aren't I so kind to you? I'm so giving to you. And all they're doing is feeding you back your own energy. And they're not even giving you full access to it. They are like dosing out your own energy to you. Ignoring legitimate constraints. This is a legitimate constraint. This temperance card is what to take into consideration. It says assistance, encouragement, and patronage. I have issues with words sometimes. This is really, it's really important to take into account that this person or situation is not the sole source. First of all, they're not the source of your power at all, but they're also not the sole, keeper of your power and your energy. And the further you get away from that, the more you recognize that again. And the more you engage with people that are willing to assist you in this process and that encourage you in this process, the more you're going to feel empowered and recognize that you don't have to judge yourself for having been attached to something like this, that there was a reason for it, and that you are reclaiming your energy and your power by choosing differently. Now, it still all comes down to your choice, right? You have to know how this applies. You have to know how this resonates. Is there a way for me to spin this into a more positive light? I can try, because I want to be objective, but the energies are just very strong. This energy of being attached to someone could very likely have been something that empowered you or felt empowering, right? It felt like you were getting something out of this, and that made you feel like, I am making progress in some way. So I could see how you might be able, if you stay, how you might be able to kind of siphon this energy for your own benefit and then kind of take off. I still see you leaving this behind though, but I see you if we put it in a more positive light, I see if you were to stay, I think it would just be prolonging leaving, but you would be kind of siphoning this energy to your own benefit, which would require a lot of calculation and a lot of so if this has to do with, let's say this is an employer, right? Because employers create this strong dependency, right? So what I see here is if this employment situation is a toxic work environment, and if you decide to stay, then it's all about being able to siphon whatever energies that they think that they're getting from you. I don't know if you've heard about the term quiet quitting. That's kind of what I'm seeing here, that it would be doing what you need to do underneath the dependency of this situation, but in the meantime, garnering whatever information, knowledge, resources that you can, and packing your bags. This really feels kind of like packing your bags in silence and preparing to get away, to just create momentum for yourself by harvesting some of this energy in silence and in secrecy. That's, if you were to stay, that's what I think would be the best way to harness this kind of energy. And then if you were to go, if I put that in context to a job, there would be this period of feeling kind of like, oh no, I mean, losing a job or even choosing to give up a job can be very difficult and can be very, very much a burden on your self-esteem. And this card, the Four of Swords, says to take rest, because whatever it is, this job is definitely, if it is a job, this is definitely burning you out. And this Four of Swords indicates that if you are deciding to leave this behind, you are going to need a period of rest and recuperation, but then you get right back to it and you'll feel empowered and pursue what it is that you want to pursue. And you're going to feel so much more in control than you did previously. Wow. All right, let's get you any last considerations or advice for making this decision for group 4. Any last considerations or advice in making this decision? Look at that, we have blessings. For some reason, I feel like I need another one. There we go, we have seasons. Okay, so both of these cards are drawing my attention back to the Temperance card in terms of what you need to take into consideration, which is about balance. How balanced is the situation that you're at right now? If it is very imbalanced, which is what it looks like to me, how can we restore balance? Well, in order to restore balance, we have to pull back our energy and we have to demand, right? There is a change coming here. This card with these 2 swans is also taking me back. There's 2 horses here. There's something about having support outside of that's the thing. This energy feels very isolating in some way. And I think if you release yourself from this, I think you're able to find a lot more support, or able to embrace a lot more support. With this Seasons card, it is important to understand that if you choose to let this go, whatever this is, there will be a season of detox. There will be a season of winter, but it is necessary, right? Winter is a necessary season. It cannot be spring all the time. It cannot be summer all the time. There will be a season of emotional or financial or mental winter where it's like, you're going to need that. You're going to need that to recoup. And then right after that, we have the Strength card, which is Leo energy. So, the sun will come out again. And you're going to have to trust that. And you're also going to have to, with this Temperance card, you're also going to have to employ a lot of compassion for yourself. Because whenever we pull our energy back and we reclaim our energy, we get to this point where we then start feeling all this rage. Look at the fire. I'm taking it back to the fire. Then you start feeling all this rage of like, how did I allow that in the past? How did I let it get so far? How did I get off course so much? And that's when self-compassion is going to be really important. And we have to understand that there was a reason to go through that kind of dependency in order for you to fully embrace your own power. And the Blessings card, I think, is really talking about the necessity of going through those seasons in order to be able to reach a harvest, because you cannot have a harvest without having experienced the full cycle of these seasons. Okay, so overall, I will say again, it is absolutely your choice and your divine right to make decisions about your life. But in terms of the bigger picture that I'm seeing, I strongly feel that Spirit is guiding you to release this in honor of your own power and your own, I just heard your own supremacy. in honor of your own supremacy, because right now I think you're giving a ton of energy away. And they're making this situation or this person, excuse me, the situation or this person is making you believe that they're doing you a favor by managing your energy. And that's not the case at all. They're siphoning your energy. So again, if you chose to stay, I think you should find ways to siphon that energy back and to kind of get yourself an advantage to then kind of create a cushion so then you can take off. Because I do see you liberating yourself one way or another. All right? Okay, group 4, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you are up to it, leave me a comment. Let me know how this made you feel, how it applies, what you're thinking. I love to hear some feedback. Other than that, if you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website only. It is linked in the description below. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. I just looked up at the recording and it was 22 minutes and 22 seconds. I just had to share that.